Hello everybody and welcome back to another Pokémon Emerald video. Today I will be using Totodile to close off the Generation 2 starter trio. Nowadays Totodile is my go-to starter whenever I play Crystal. I think he is the best in that game and likely is going to be the best in Emerald too, considering that the typing is pretty good and the move pool is much bigger than the other two. Anyway, for the rules, I can only use my starter in combat, I can't use items from my bag in battle, I can't raise my evasion in any way, and I can't use cheats or glitches. One interesting aspect of the Generation 2 starters is that their evolution levels vary a lot. The Pokémon Company did not really do anything like that again, and on one hand I understand you sort of want your starters to be equal, but on the other hand it is quite interesting to have them evolve at different levels. That might be an important factor when choosing the starter, especially in speedruns and Nuzlocke. For our first serious fight, we have to deal with May and her Trico. I did end up leveling once for this since Trico is pretty good, but a crit made all of that effort useless since I would have won anyway. Moving on, after dealing with a bit of story stuff, we can find this guy in the forest being harassed by the Team Aqua guy. We are sort of thrown in the middle of the conflict and we have to end up fighting the Grunt. His Pokémon is not too dangerous unless you miss a lot with Sand Attack, and fortunately that did not happen today. Since Totodile is water type and we just learned a stab move, I feel pretty confident in taking on Roxanne at a lower level than usual. Water Gun is going to be extremely effective against her first two Geodudes since they are 4 times weak to it. But defeating Nosepass, her ace Pokémon, is going to take a few more turns since he has more stats and better typing. Not to mention the berry and potions that she keeps using on it. Taking a look at the EVs, they are all quite good other than attack, but it's fine, I'll deal with that. After defeating our first gym, we have to do the Pico side quest stuff, and then before leaving town, we have to confront May once again. This fight is optional, but I always like to do it for content and for XP. Her team is a bit more dangerous now, since she has a Wingull that can confuse me, and Trico now knows Absorb, but fortunately between her bad choice of moves and flinches, he does not get to use it. I skipped Brawly since I do not feel confident with my current moveset and level, and so we ended up in Slateport. Here we find more Team Aqua grunts being a menace, and of course we have to put an end to that. This time their teams do not include a Pokémon, but they are still very easy since their Pokémons are very frail and are defeated in a couple of attacks each. Things might change later, but for now these grunts are not a problem at all. After having to listen to Archie for a while and being tanked by the captain guy, we can resume our training and face the next fight against May. Unfortunately, here she defeated me quite a few times. Grovyle is very fast and his Absorb deals a lot of damage. After losing a few times, I took a second to grind a couple more levels, since I did not need that much extra power, and those just 2 extra levels are just what I needed to get rid of her starter, leaving on very little HP, but living nonetheless. Fortunately, her last Pokémon is Lagma, which I can easily defeat with a water gun, and with that, May is done. Unfortunately, our next encounter is going to be even harder. Wattson is no joke, and his electric Pokémons really did a number on me. I even went and bought Ice Beam from the casino to maybe have a chance at freezing, but that really did not happen much throughout my fights. I also leveled a couple of times in between until I had my successful attempt at level 40 almost. While I did not do much different since my moveset is pretty straightforward, I finally got a freeze on Magneton, and that's exactly what I needed to get through this fight. Luckily for me, the freeze also lasts a long time, since every turn it has a 10% chance to thaw out. Since it didn't, I can reach the Manectric without being paralyzed. And of course he changes that very fast, but that's a bit too late for him, since I can have just enough turns to get rid of the electric dog and finally earn the Dynamo badge. After the struggle that was Wattson, I explored more of the region with the TM Rock Smash and eventually landed in Meterfall Caves. Here we find the two teams having a verbal fight and we are informed about Max's plan. Of course, we cannot let him go through with it, and so we reach him and challenge him to a fight. His team is quite a bit more powerful than the grunts we were used to fighting, mostly because my Tiena does not go down in a single hit and has the chance to use Sand Attack. The rest of the team is much less dangerous since I can take care of them with either Ice Beam or Water Gun. Unfortunately, I am still stuck with the water gun, since Totodile does not learn any great water moves through level up. On the other hand, I should be thankful, since having even a weak water move is more than enough to take care of Flannery. The first 3 Pokémons in her team get absolutely destroyed by any H2O you throw at them, since they have very bad special defense and are very weak to it. Torkoal is a bit more resistant, especially if he uses Sunny Day, since it lowers the power of water attacks. I switched to Bite to maybe get a flinch, but that did not really work out. The potions stalled out the fight, but eventually I came out on top with my water attacks. Now that we have Flannery's badge too, it's time to backtrack and go deal with Brawly. At this point his team is very much not a problem. I am way over-leveled for this fight, literally almost triple his Pokémon's level, and so his Pokémons all are defeated in a single attack. After getting the fighting badge, we can move on with our journey, and after backtracking a tiny bit more, we have to face our dead Norman for the normal badge. Here unfortunately I lost once to Slacking since he goes for the yawn strategies, but in the second attempt things went a bit different. The first part of his team is quite standard. His Pokémons are tanky enough to survive 1 or 2 attacks, so they have the chance to deal some damage on me. But the main course of the fight is Slacking. I am still unsure why sometimes he goes for yawn and sometimes he goes for counter. Personally, I much prefer the counter strategy, since I know how to deal with it and I can play around it. Since he did not put me to sleep, this time I won the match and earned the badge, but most importantly I can now use Surf. So we finally have a good stab move on our Pokémon. After using the Surf HM out of combat for a while, we can reach the Weather Institute, where we have to fight against the Team Admiral Shelley, and of course she is not really a problem. Not long after that, we have another encounter with our rival, and this time she too is not going to be an issue, since I have either Surf or Ice Beam to deal with pretty much everything on her team. Surprisingly, the only thing that leaves a hit is the Lombre, but there is not he can do really. One weak absorb is not going to cut it. After dealing with May, we can move on with the story, and eventually we have to challenge the next gym leader. Winona uses flying types, and that is great for us since we have Ice Beam that is more than capable of dealing with pretty much everything on her team. The only two annoying Pokémons are Pelipper with his Protects, but a crit fixes that, and the Metal Bird Skarmory, but a Surf fixes that too. Her Ace is very weak to Ice, so see you! Now that we have acquired the Flying Badge too, we can move to the next town over, where we find our rival May guarding the entrance to the mall. Of course, we end up challenging her, even if this too is an optional fight. Her team did improve a little bit, mostly with Pelipper, but that's not really enough to stop my onslaught. I mention Pelipper because that is really the only thing that sort of put up a fight against me. With his Protects, he can stall me for quite a bit, and his natural tankiness makes it so Slash is a 3-hit KO. After getting rid of May here too, we can go to the Pokémon Cemetery and get the Magma Emblem. With this key item, we can enter the Team Magma Cave, where we find Maxie waking up the legendary Pokémon Groudon. Since the legendary left, Maxie is a bit pissed and decides to attack us. His team is very similar to what we faced before, the only difference is the Crobat, who is tanky enough to survive an Ice Beam. I'm a bit impressed, but he dies at the second one, so that was not really a problem. Once we have swept through his team, we can go to the Team Aqua base and do the same to this Admiral guy. Fortunately for us, he only has 2 Pokémons that are quite weak, at least compared to Maxie, so this fight is very much a breeze. Once I'm done with him, I have quite a bit of time to grind, because our next fight is going to be a bit tougher. This time, Tate and Liza were not as much of a struggle as with Cyndaquil, mostly because my typing is much better and I have a Surf. This still does not mean that the fight is free, since they can still deal a lot of damage to me, and since Solrock survived, he ends up using a Sunny Day. Fortunately, that does not matter too much, since I can still defeat both of them with a Surf. And once there is only Lunaton remaining, even though he tries his best to survive as much as possible, boosting his defense with Calm Mind, Light Screen and whatnot, eventually the sun fades and I can finish off the Moon Rock Pokémon with a few more waves of water. That still ends up taking a while, since Tate and Liza have multiple Hyper Potions that they spam on their Pokémons. Once we have acquired this badge too, we can go do the other double fight of the island. This time we are aided by Steven and have to fight off the leadership of Team Magma. Their teams are nothing new really, just a bunch of the usual Pokémons, and since all of them are weak or neutral to Surf, I limited myself to just spam that move over and over again until all of their team members were defeated. As usual, there is not a whole lot to say about this fight, so fun fact, did you know that Totodile has both the latest and earliest evolutions for a starter? It evolves into Crocodile at level 18, tied with Turtwig for some reason, and later into Feraligator at level 30, which is the lowest level of all of the fully evolved starters. Eventually we defeat the Team Magma and are given the Dive HM by Steven. We immediately have to use it to reach the seafloor cave, where we find Archie about to wake up the other legendary Pokémon. To prevent him from doing that, we challenge him to a duel, and of course, since his team is nothing to write home about, we come out on top without too many difficulties. The only thing that surprised me a bit is that Sharpedo survived the surf. I know it's resisted, but that guy has a very bad special defense. Anyway, even though we won the fight, the red orb still activates and wakes up Kyogre, and with that, since both of the weather legendaries are awake, we have to go ask Rayquaza for help to deal with them. Meanwhile, could you scroll a little bit and subscribe, like, share the video, ring the bell, and all of that YouTube stuff? It helps out a lot. Thank you. Now it's time for Juan, and unfortunately here I lost because Kingdra froze me and then defeated me. Yay! Whatever. The second attempt goes a bit better. His team is not too threatening. Sure, I do not have any great moves to hit his Pokémons with, but they don't either, so this should be fine. Whiscash is nice enough to set up the rain for me too, so now Surf is going to hit for much more damage. I still don't use it too much since it is resisted and Return probably has a better power. Eventually Kingdra comes out again and I misclick and use a Surf, but the later Ice Beam is a crit, getting rid of the Seahorse Pokémon, and I think I deserve that after the freeze, so we are done with the gym leaders. Now that we have all of the badges, we can enter the Victory Road, where we are stopped by Wally and his team of random Pokémons. Unfortunately for him, they do not deal very well with water Pokémons, mostly because with either Ice Beam or Surf, I can deal with pretty much all of his team. I misclick again against Roselia, but he ends up only using Leech Seed, which is annoying but not too dangerous. Since it does not increase in power like Toxic, there is a much smaller risk of Gardevoir stalling me out, and that does not happen anyway since 2 returns are enough to defeat him. After getting through the rest of Victory Road, I can get to the league and enter immediately. Our first match is going to be against Sidney and his dark types. Mightyena and his Intimidate are a bit annoying, but fortunately I have Surf and Ice Beam to take care of most of his team. Both of them are special, so Intimidate is not going to be a problem. I am very surprised that Shiftry managed to leave an Ice Beam. That's impressive, but eventually he falls too. Crodant is where things get dangerous, since he sets up with the Source Dance and then crits me with the Strength, taking me down to only 40 HP. That is sort of a blessing in disguise, since now Torrent, our ability, activates, and so Surf is going to do even more damage. For the later fight against Phoebe, I decided to not heal so that Torrent would still be active. This way, one Surf is going to be enough to defeat the first Dusclops, so I don't have to worry about Curse. Unfortunately, it's not all good news, because my HP is still very low, and if anything survives, I might end up losing. And that's almost what happens with the second Dusclops. He lives, but I also live on 7 HP. Phew. And thankfully that's the end of Phoebe. Next is Glacia, and unfortunately here things did not really go very well. Maybe I should have picked up Brick Break, since that is super effective against her, but I sort of wanted to keep Bite. And since things were not looking good against her, and later Wallace would be even harder, I decided to leave and grind for a while. I came back at level 87, but I still ended up losing once to another freeze. Yay! At least the second attempt at a higher level went much better. It's a bit annoying that I cannot defeat the Glalie in one hit, because he uses Icy Wind, which lowers my speed, and that might be a problem later. The second Celio does not paralyze me with the Body Slam, and I'm very thankful for that, since that makes the rest of the fight much easier. I lowered Glalie's HP with Bite to dodge the potion range, and that worked. Wall Rain is the last thing I have to deal with, and a crit from return makes it so the fight against it is going to be quite a bit easier. It still goes on for a bit since he has potions, but once I got into Torrent Rage again, I used Surf, and with that boost it's enough to defeat the Walrus, taking down the third Elite Four. Drake is the last one, and even though he should be an easy fight, I still ended up losing because of Kingdra. The second attempt goes a bit better, but not too much so, surprisingly. Most of his team is very weak to Ice Beam, so they are not the problem, as I can just defeat them in a single use. What turns out to be very annoying is Kingdra. Kingdra leaves 2 Ice Beam hits, and that's extremely bad, since he now has the time to heal up and be very annoying. He even sets up and then starts spamming Body Slam, which deals a lot of damage, but fortunately does not paralyze this time. That allows me to outspeed both of his last remaining Pokémons and deal with them with a single Ice Beam each, finally getting me through the Elite Four. Last but not least is the fight against the champion, and this one was quite hard. His Pokémons are very tanky, and since I don't really have any great way to deal with them, they eventually chip me down and defeat me. I attempted him multiple times at level 88, but once I reached 30 resets, I decided to use the rare candies to level me up all the way to 100. This way it was quite a bit easier, since many of the previous ranges are now guaranteed KOs, and the crit against Ludicolo helped out a lot. Unfortunately I got poisoned by Sludge Bomb, but I was sort of ready for that with the Pecha Berry. That was supposed to stop a Toxic from Milotic, but since he does not use it, I still have a chance to defeat Wallace in this attempt. I think there is a range of HP where Whiscash always uses Amnesia. I'm not sure what it is, but it often ends up being very useful. Gyarados is his last Pokémon, and here is where things could fall apart, because he survives 2 Ice Beams and then heals. That is extremely bad, since he is setting up a lot. I was worried until I got the freeze, but my happiness did not last very long as Gyarados thawed out immediately. I managed to survive an earthquake and finished off the sea snake with Ice Beam. And that's how Totodile managed to become the champion of the Hoenn region. Thank you for watching. If you liked, leave a like, subscribe, ring the bell, share the video and all of that YouTube stuff. If you have any comments, feedback, video ideas or anything you want to share, leave it in the comments. I'll be sure to answer it as soon as I can. Thank you for watching and I'll see you next week. Bye!